What's up, bitches? I'm back. What's up, you guys? It is Nita from Nita's Fluid Woodworks. Today I am going to be showing you guys how to make one of my favorite pieces. This is my signature piece, the Petoskey Table. This is one of my first encapsulation pieces. I'm gonna show you guys how to make this step by step. Let's dive in. All right, so when making your mold, I like to use MDF. It's really, really easy to work with, and you can get a sheet that is fairly inexpensive. You want these to be flat because when you're caulking your frame down, if there's gaps in between there and you have any snite, resin's gonna leak out of your table, and we don't want that to happen. All right, so working with MDF, there is a lot of dust. I have a dust extractor. If you don't have a vacuum or a cyclone or anything like that, make sure that you're using your PPE. Make sure that you're using the right mask. Remember that the mask you use for resin is not the mask you use for dust, okay? Make sure you wear your eye gear. All right, we have our frame together, and now we're going to make it so resin doesn't stick to it. All right, so there is our frame. All right, so you want to make sure that you got 90s. So you can make your straight lines. So I'm gonna try to get as much of this in the piece as I can, while also trying to take into account that this is like curved and you want it to sit right in your frame, right? So roughly there. So from there, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna debark this and then flatten it out. Then we're gonna find center and get pouring. So we have our clamps, we got the table locked down, and now we're going to go ahead and debark this. Cue the debarking montage. All right, so you saw how easy that bark came off. This next step is just as crucial. If you don't get this off, your river's gonna crack. Like, that is gonna crack. So one of the tools that I like to use is the restorer. So the goal is to get this off. Once you take your draw knife and get all the bark off, we're gonna go ahead and get this off. So after I use the restorer, then you go in behind it, and I use this. Now it is targeted for furniture refinishers,
and it works so good.
So what it does is it goes in and it cleans up all of the marks that the wire bristles, whether from the drill or the restorer or whatever it is you're using, it cleans that up. So you get to choose whether you want like a clean look, or if you're doing something that's rustic, then you can leave some of those wire marks in there. I go on a case-by-case basis, whether like what did my client order, what look am I trying to go for, and that's going to determine what kind of edge I'm gonna leave on my piece. I like this to look kind of rustic, but still kind of clean. So it's somewhere in the middle that I'm going for on this piece. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna flatten our slab out. You're also gonna wanna wear PPE. That is a must. This is so, even with my dust extractor, it's bad. Like, there's a lot of dust, so make sure that you're protecting yourself. right, so after you have your slab flattened, your edges cleaned up, you're ready to cut it down to size. You get to choose where you want your river to go. I like to use a straight edge. With this piece and the way this flame is like going up the center, I want to share it between the two sides. Alright, so once you have your slab cut, that is how you get your everything. One of the best purchases that I've made was these polyethylene sheets, this HDPE. I looked into what would be a good solution and reusable and take minimal effort to just keep up with. And I ran into these sheets. I have poured so much stuff on here and it cleans up so easy, and it's just like, you just keep reusing it. So like resin doesn't stick to it. I don't have to put any, like all of those resin drips, it comes right off. So now that you got this cleaned up, I'll probably wipe it down with some alcohol, and then we're gonna caulk down our mold. All right, for caulk, I like this one right here. I don't know, it just feels rigid, and it gets hard when I want it to get, I'm not saying that it's rigid, and I don't get leaks with it. I have tried a bunch of different ones, and I don't know, I like this one. So when you're doing this, you're gonna want a consistent bead along the bottom, and then I let that set, and then I go back and I do the inside and the outsides. If you notice that there's any thin spots, go ahead and grab that, because once you pour that resin in, like, this is your insurance that it's going to stay in. All right, so once you have your bead on the bottom of there, you're gonna go ahead and put it down. I like to add weight to the corners, and that's gonna give you a good seal. So when you add that weight, you're also gonna see squeeze out, like here. Make sure you grab that right away, because if you don't, it's not gonna let your wood sit flush on your bottom, okay? I'm gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes, and then you can come back and get a good bead around the inside, okay? And the outside. All right, so now that our caulk is dry, we're going to go ahead and put our slabs in here. And okay, so you see how this is like super skinny and then it's like wide over here? What is the width of this river? I'm gonna show you how to figure that out. You're gonna find the average, and this is like, what, 5th grade math? Okay, so that's about 3 inches. That's about 4. All right, so you're gonna take these numbers, 3 plus 4 plus 4.5 plus 3.5 plus 5 and plus 5.5 equals, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So you're gonna divide that by 6. So the average width of this is 4 1/4. And we already know that the length of this is 35 inches. And I'm pouring a 1/4 inch thick, okay? So we're gonna go 35 by 4.25 times 0.25 equals, and divided by 1.805. So I need 20 ounces, okay, to put a 1/4 inch in the bottom of this. I am using tabletop resin, and the reason is because I'm super impatient and I just want to do the next layer. Plus, I like the hardness of this being on the bottom. All right, so we are doing 20 ounces. Be first, like I always do. Remember, tabletop resin is a thicker resin than the deep pour. So you're gonna have to warm it up a little bit. All right, so my color doesn't have to be your color. This is what I use. Get your mica powders in there and make sure that you mix them up. All right, after your resin's mixed, then you're just gonna go ahead and get that in there. All right, from there, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pop our bubbles. All right, so I'm gonna let this cure overnight. Honestly, about 10 hours will do. And then we're gonna get some rocks in here and we're gonna pour the mass of this. My life has been impacted by me starting my business, mainly because I'm a mom before anything else. And doing this has allowed me to, I feel like, fully embrace that. The one thing that is important to me is time. And that's something that I'm working on really, really hard right now, is to stop trading time for money. And that's where the e-courses come in. And that's, my business is kind of taking a turn because I was struggling with finding a purpose and a sense of purpose. And I needed to take a step back and to kind of figure out what that meant for me. And what it meant was, I want to be more present for me and my family and my kids. So it's given me that freedom to be able to show up the way I want to show up. All right, so now that the resin has cured, we're gonna go ahead and place the rocks in there. I have already cleaned these rocks with vinegar, Dawn dish soap, and water. I make my own solution. I let it set for a few days, and then you have to make sure that they're completely dry. All right, so as I'm doing this, the only thing that I need to do is just make sure that none of the rock, I keep this on hand, and I need to make sure that none of the rocks are going over this edge. So I got into making Petoskey tables because I moved away from Michigan, right? And one of the things that felt like home was seeing the things from back home. And anybody that's lived in Michigan knows what a Petoskey stone is, has probably went rock hounding. So in making the Petoskey table, it's just a way for people that have been here before or lived here and have those memories to get that wherever they're at. All right, so now that all the rocks are placed in there, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna mix up some deep pour resin. To find volume, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take length times width, which we figured out earlier, times height, which is 1.5 inches. Remember, there's gonna be some displacement from the rocks, so you're not gonna need that exact amount. I'm gonna do 120 ounces. It's calling for 138, so 120 should do just fine. This is a 2-to-1, so we're gonna do 40 of B and then 80 of A, and then that's gonna equal 120. Make sure you take your time creeping up to the line. This isn't as thick as a tabletop resin, but still take your time. You can always put more. You can never take it back out. All right, so now that I've poured this, I'm gonna wait about 10-15 minutes, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna pop all of the bubbles And then we're gonna wait 3 days and we can demold this piece. All right, so once your table has cured, I wait 3 to 4 days. Basically because I am going to be routering and doing all of those things, and I like to make sure that it is as hard as it can be, and I don't take any chances with that. The one thing that I don't do is rush my projects. Okay, all right, so we're gonna demold it, and basically all you need is your mallet and protect your eyeballs because things do fly around. All right, so you're gonna want to make your way under. All right, so after we demold the piece, the first thing that we're gonna do is cut it down to size. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna square this up. I'm gonna use my track saw. Make sure you use your PPE, and yeah, get to it. So when I'm doing my edges, I want to be sure to get all of the glossy end off, all of this end right here. I want raw exposed wood. All right, so after you got your sides squared up at 90 degrees, then you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna flatten it out. The prep work that you put in, like, is your table flattened? Did you flatten your wood? The surface that you're pouring on, is that level? All of those things are gonna determine whether you gotta spend a couple hours on this or you can just take a lip off and then go ahead and sand, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take this right here off, and then we're gonna get to finishing. All right, so I'm gonna start with 80 grit, 120 grit, and then after 120 grit, I'm gonna router the edges and then finish off with the 220. All right, so after you do the 120 grit, before you get to the 220, router your edges, whether you're doing a chamfer, or just a round over. I stick with the round over, so I'm just using a round over bit. Remember, between grits, you're gonna wanna clean up any dust, because if it gets on your sanding pad, it's gonna mess with your finish. So 91% isopropyl alcohol and whatever rags you have in your shop. All right, so 220. All right, so the table's sanded, the edges are rounded over. A lot of people get really nervous at this stage because they're doing a resin finish and they think that it's cloudy and you're not gonna be able to see through it. It's okay. This is exactly where it's supposed to be, exactly what it's supposed to look like once you add that resin finish on top of it. As long as you did a good job sanding, it's gonna be perfect. It's gonna clear right up, it's gonna look perfect. All right, so we are going in for the seal coat. Seal coats are 1 ounce per square foot. I like to use Epoxy tabletop resin. I've been using it for a hella long time. The reasoning is because the hardness level is exactly what I'm looking for when I'm picking a tabletop resin. Also, the UV resistance, I like it. It just gives me a great finish overall, and it's super easy to work with. All right, so 4 ounces is going to be perfect. The reasoning for seal coats is to seal the wood. It's literally why it's called a seal coat. So what you're doing is you're sealing the wood to be able to do a flood coat. And this is the step that people skip and then call me and say, my piece is effed up. It looks like bubble wrap. Oh my God, what did I do? Please help. And they skip the seal coat. So we do thin seal coats and then a flood coat. I'm putting the resin in warm water just to make the viscosity of it lower and easier to work with. It'll spread a lot easier. And just mix a lot easier as well. This is by far like one of the best parts of making your piece, because this is where you get to see like all of your hard work just come back to life. Like you get to see how good of a job you did. You get to see everything just kind of come together. This and a flood coat, so satisfying. So when you're putting your resin on, stay away from the sides. You're not gonna want the resin to go dripping over the sides before you can work with it. And if you start losing it before you get to work with it, it's not gonna be good. All right, so what I do is I go close to the edge, but I don't push over. All right, so once you're there, now we're gonna go over the edge. All right, so make sure there's no surface tension and don't let any other resin build up on the top. You can torch the river, but you can't torch the wood. And now I just go in with my hands and I'm gonna make sure that we don't have any drippy sides. Okay, so when I'm torching, I hold my torch the way I'm going because I feel like it overlaps and it does the part in front of it. Don't hold your torch in one spot, keep it moving. We're gonna let this cure for about 12 hours and then come back in, see if we gotta do another seal coat. Hopefully we don't, and we can just do a flood coat. All right, so I have this table, it's already got a seal coat on it. While the other one cures, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna flood this one. This is fully cured. When your resin fully cures in between seal coats and flood coats, you have to go in and scuff it up. This is gonna create a mechanical bond between the two layers. If your resin is not fully cured, you wouldn't have to scuff anything up. So if you'd come back in the 10, 12 hours and do the next layer, you'd be good and it would just bond together by itself. So I'm gonna just use a sander because it's gonna be fast. And if by chance you have any drips on your edges, go ahead and take care of those now, and then you won't have them in your final piece, okay? All right, so now that we have our piece scuffed up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a flood coat. I'm gonna be using Promise Epoxy's tabletop resin. Again, I like the hardness of it. It gives me the protection that I'm looking for in my table. We're gonna do 3 ounces per square foot. So 12 ounces is going to be key for this. When doing my flood coats, I use a notched trowel. All right, 3 ounces per square foot, length times width. If you're doing inches, divide that by 144, and that times that by 3, and then you get your answer there. So I'm gonna do 12 ounces. So I'm gonna put this in some hot water, warm water, and it's gonna make it easier to mix. So when you're pouring the flood coat on, stay away from the edges. Like I said before with the seal coat, you don't want the resin going over before you can get it to where you need. You want to make sure that you can cover your complete surface before we start putting it over the edge. So the placement and the movements that I'm going to be doing next are very intentional. Make sure your table, your surface is level. We're gonna use the 1/8 inch notch side over here. Then I usually start from the middle and I will work around on the sides. Wrap that resin underneath. That's gonna give you that good seal on your piece. All right, so this piece is done. I'm gonna let this cure for 2 days. I know 24 hours is its cure time. I'm gonna let this cure for 2 days just because I have had pieces that I rushed, and when I flipped them over, the towel or the blanket or whatever I sat it on, it left indents and it's just not worth it. So take your time, don't rush your process, let it cure, and then flip it over. All right, so after your flood coat is cured and you've taken care of the bottom of your piece, it's time to add legs. I always add threaded inserts to my pieces. And the reasoning is if people are screwing in and out of the wood, it's gonna compromise the structural integrity of the piece. And I spent too much damn time on this thing to be messing it up like that. I'm not doing that. So once you have your legs on, we have made a completed Petoskey table. This is one of my favorite projects to do because I get to include my whole family. We get to go rock hounding on the beaches, and they just get to see the rocks that they hounded like go all over the world, and that is so cool for them, and that's cool for me to watch them experience. All right, so you guys can check out my e-courses. I have a ton of e-courses that show different projects just like this one at different skill levels. Those will be linked up down below. Thank you guys for watching. I really enjoyed doing this piece and getting to share this process with you guys. It means a lot to me. This is one of my first encapsulations that I've ever done. Check out my socials to see what's new in the shop, and yeah, thanks for watching.